Good morning, everybody, and welcome once again, to Turning Towards Life. This is Lizzie and Justin. We're here live on Facebook. It's 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, and we were just very briefly saying how joyful it is to be here and to have this ritual, this thing that we do each Sunday, where we get to read beautiful things and talk to one another, and also know that there's a community of us out there listening. And each time our little group grows, there's a kind of surprisedness in me, a gratitude. And I know that we've had a little spurt this week, so welcome. Maybe this is your first time being here listening to us. And also welcome if you're listening at another time. You might be listening in 2040 or something. Who knows? And you're very welcome here. And we really hope this is a place of sanctuary and reflection and hopefully inspiration, and just a great big welcome to whatever is happening in your life at the moment. So welcome, and thank you, Justin, for this lovely source that you've chosen this week. It's beautiful.
Welcome, Lizzie. Well, hello, everyone. Everything that Lizzie said, that it really is so joyful for me to get to do this, Lizzie, to be in this conversation with you and to never know what's going to unfold. And it was one of my experiences this week of choosing a source, when we're some 150 or so times into this practice. I guess it's true to say that all the things that, well, many of the things that we might have thought to pick straight off have been picked, although not all of them. I still have a little stash of things to bring on different weeks. But the process of looking for and finding things that are new, and then really trusting that something would unfold between us, whatever the source is, has been very life-giving indeed. And I've been thinking a lot this week, Lizzie, about how this is a way, what we're doing is not just a practice, obviously, for the two of us and share it, but it's one way of coming at life, which is to keep on trusting that what life does is it keeps on unfolding into the openings that we make for it. And I know that when I trust that way, life feels very different from another way I can be, which in a way, this is what we're going to read sort of points into. But I notice how easy it is for me to contract, to shrink away from life as if life was itself was some kind of threat or assault or something. It's easier. For one reason or another, my body does that really easily. And here we are in a practice of trusting that between us, in our conversation between us, and of course surrounded by all the people who are listening, who are with us, that life will come through in some way. And that itself is an extraordinarily life-giving practice. So I'm very glad to be in that this morning. And I think it's more accurately what life does as well. As life is always trying to find a way through whatever circumstances and whatever openings. And so here we are doing this with words and relationship and conversation, which is one of the things that we humans can do. So the source is always on our Facebook, in our Facebook group, which is Turning Towards Life, which if you haven't joined us, you're really welcome to join us there, because there's a conversation that goes on in the comments underneath each of the videos and each of the sources. And of course, if you're listening to this on our podcast, you'll find it on turningtowards.life as well. So it's a piece called A Poem for My Daughter by Teddy Macker. We're reading just the first part of it. It goes like this. It seems we have made pain some kind of mistake, like having it is somehow wrong. Don't let them fool you. Pain is a part of things. But remember, dear Ellie, the compost down in the field. If the rank and dank and dark are handled well, not merely discarded, but turned and known and honoured, then one day come to beds of rich earth, home even to the most delicate rose. God comes to you disguised as your life. blessings often arrive as trouble. In French, the word blesser means to wound and relates to the Old English bletzian, to sprinkle with blood. And in Sanskrit, there is a phrase to carry with you wherever you go. Sarvam anam, everything is food, every last thing.
It seems we have made pain some kind of mistake, like having it is somehow wrong. Don't let them fool you. Pain is a part of things. But remember, dear Ellie, the compost down in the field. If the rank and dank and dark are handled well, not merely discarded, but turned and known and honoured, they one day come to beds of rich earth, home even to the most delicate rose. God comes to you disguised as your life. Blessings often arrive as trouble. In French, the word blessé means to wound and relates to the Old English bletzian, to sprinkle with blood. And in Sanskrit, there is a phrase to carry with you wherever you go. Sarvam anam. Everything is food. Every last thing.
One of the things I love about this poem, there are many things I love about this, Lizzie, but one part is actually the line surprised me just now when we were reading it. I have to find it now. Blessings often arrive as trouble. Not blessings always arrive as trouble, nor all trouble is always a blessing. I was really glad for that, because I know that there's a very simplistic formula that it's possible for any of us to get in with, particularly with other people, which is to go, it's a kind of skipping past life. So you're in trouble, and instead of turning towards your trouble and your pain, I say to you something like, Lizzie, well, you know, all difficulties are an opening to something better, or some good will come of this, or all of those kind of things. And I wanted to say that right off, because I think with anything as deep and as subtle as the words in Teddy Macker's poem, there's always a way of making it trivial, which I know we're not going to get into, but I can feel the part of me that rises to object, because I see so many people I love who are in difficulty, and it's so hard to see that there is any blessing in the difficulty, and maybe for them there isn't always. And yet, this is the bit that has me feel so hopeful. The compost down in the field, if handled well, and not merely discarded, but turned and known and honoured, then one day can be home. And that, in fact, in this whole thing, right in the middle there, is the line that most deeply touches me, because I recognise in myself the old, long-held story, which I'm sure many people other than me share, which is that if I were a good person, if I were the right person, my life would be free of difficulty, and my difficulties and my pains are a sign that somehow I've messed up. Well, I may have messed up, but are a sign that somehow there's a fault with me. And how much I notice. So I've, in recent days, I've been waking up once again in a very, very strong feeling of bodily strangeness and bodily discomfort, which I think might be as something, it might be the physiological bit of it might be, it's as simple as hay fever or something. It's like my body is in some kind of, but what I notice is the way that it's so easy for me to go, which is the opposite of Teddy Macker's invitation, is to go, something's wrong, I don't like it, something's wrong with me, I have to fight this, I have to get out of this, I have to fix this, I have to, and I can't, and because I can't, so layering layers and layers and layers. There's the actual thing that's happening, and then there's the stories that come on top of it, and the stories that come on top of that, all of which are laden with negative assessments. And none of it feels anything like turning and tending and honouring, like you might do lovingly if you were gardening something. And there's the key for me, this turn from punishing ourselves because we're in difficulty, and in doing so adding to our pain, or treating the pain as something really sacred that comes with having a body, which comes with having a heart that can love, that comes with the world being never just the way I wanted it. And that's what I'm so glad about in this poem, is the reminder that we can do that for ourselves, and just occurring to me now that it's also what we can do best with one another when we give up, joining in the stories of you must be at fault, but also joining in the stories of I have to rescue you, I have to make all of this go away. Lizzie, there's a completely different orientation that we can take up if we'll take it, that's really tender and precious and sacred and deepening of our lives.
Yeah, I noticed just in the encountering of this poem and listening to you talking as well, how I feel really attached to there not being pain. And when there is, I find myself wanting it to be different than this. And thank goodness I have this inquiry, you know, because really I feel like I work with a constant wish that it wasn't painful, but that not following far behind that is the remembering that pain is part of life and it's necessary and it has a place. And as Teddy is inviting us into, if we handle it well, if we turn it and honor it, it can become this richness. And I know that there are some people in my life for whom pain is like very, very easily and quickly acknowledged as the compost from which things grow. But for my particular structures, I know that I have a very strong aversion to pain. And so it really takes some work to face in and to, in the moment, allow something to be painful without doing everything I can to reverse it or stop it or make it not happen for another person or something. And Justin, you know the nature of our work so well that I know that you know what I must have to do in order to stay present. And it's quite a thing. It's like I'm so grateful for the work that I do with my clients, for the work you and I do with groups and everything, because it really works. It's like I'm not only in this personally, because if I was, I think it might not be enough to show me truly that turning towards the pain, what is needed, is functional, is necessary. But I have something else much bigger that holds me to this principle, which is the work that I do with other people and the relationships that I'm in too, in more of a kind of personal life thing. And it really is a constant kind of wanting to take it away, wanting it to go away, and feeling very, very grateful when I don't do that thing because of the gifts that come. But it seems like it's a lifetime's work, because the next time something comes, I still want it to go away. It's like it's not a lesson learned in one hit. It's like a continual practice of seeing my responses, seeing my reactions, letting them be there, and trying to remember again and again and again and again, I would say as quickly as I can, because it doesn't really help to stay in the aversion. It mostly makes things worse in a way. So this is such a reminder for me of just how easy it is for me to be in that reaction that I don't want it for me or anyone else, and to see the richness in it feels, yeah, like I think I'm going to have this as like a lifetime curriculum. And I know in my personality structure as well, it is that. And thank God I know about that, and mostly through studying the Enneagram, which is this personality model thing, Justin, I know you know a lot about as well. It's helped me to have that as part of my map of what I'm like on a kind of structural level, so that I can acknowledge that and know that that's going to be a recurring something. And the fear of the pain as well, the fear of that, being stuck with afraidness or physical pain or emotional pain or spiritual pain, is really, really strong. So it takes a lot to cultivate myself in a moment where it's and in a moment where it's difficult. It really is, like I'm thrown into the pain as well. So life doesn't happen like, all right, on Thursday you're going to have some pain, so get ready for it. You know, it's like there's no kind of scheduled pain or something. It's like when it comes, it's here and I'm in it, and suddenly something's triggered me or someone's unwell. And it really is an encounter with how much I don't want it, and I want it to go away. And yet every single time I've turned towards it and been in it, it has borne fruit. And that's still not enough to teach me just to get on with it when it comes. And that's what's really occurring to me now, is maybe it's like a spiral or something. You know, of course there's ways that I've got much, much more deft at working with it and noticing it, but it doesn't seem to have my reaction, my habitual response. I guess I've lessened the time between the pain being just pain and me being conscious of the pain and working with it. Like the time has got shorter, and I do have a way of working with it where before I didn't. It was just like, oh, it's painful, get rid of it quick, and then I just wouldn't even think about it again, or try not to, at least until it came back to get me again. But at least now I'm shortening the time. I've got more skillfulness in my own emotions to stay present enough to notice it's happening and then do something different than what my normal habitual response might like to do.
Really, Lizzie, deeply struck by lots of things that you said, and the one that's most present for me now is you said something like, "Thank goodness you don't have to do this on your own." So, of course, I know that there are many of us who do find ourselves in pain on our own. And what I'm about to say is not intended to be any disrespect to any of us who find ourselves in that situation. The thing I noticed was, in your talking about how when you turn towards painful circumstances or painful experiences, it's always opened something for you, and yet you forget the next time it comes round. And I've been thinking a lot whilst you were talking about the difference between different kinds of pain. Like if you've got your hand on the stove and it's burning, the right thing to do is to take your hand off, of course. And our bodies are built that way to have us do that. Thank goodness that there's a whole, before we even get to think about it, part of us that moves our hand off. And then, of course, we've got a story about it and all those things, but really it happened before we even thought about it. And that seems right, that there's pain. There's maybe we could distinguish between a pain and harm, might be a good distinction to make. So there's harm that we could get ourselves out of the way of, and that reaction of get away is really, really, really important there. And then there's pain that we actually can't avoid, and that's where that reaction doesn't help. So I noticed that in myself around grief, how often my body reaction before I've even thought about it is a bit like taking my hand off the cooker. when grief is involved, either actual grief, somebody got sick or somebody died or I lost something or whatever, or anticipatory grief. So I couldn't easily walk around the world with my body in a way sort of tensed up against, let me never lose anything or anybody, and let me live my life so I'll never have to feel that. All of which seems to me comes from the same kind of level as the get your hand off the cooker level. Okay, and so then here's what I started to see when you were talking about this, which is that it's really a lot to ask of us, that we on our own can find a way to be people who will say, my attempt to get away is an unnecessary suffering, the pain is here, my job is to turn towards it, to know it and honor it and turn it in the way that Teddy Macker invites us to. And maybe because we live in a society that has so privileged individualism, we forget that we need relationship in order to do this. It's not a solitary task. One kind of relationship actually might be with words, like it might be with Teddy Macker's poem. I can see how reading him regularly, and there are others, of course, is a way of remembering, oh, I don't have to walk around with my whole life tensed up to stop this thing that is going to happen from happening. But the other thing is finding others who will at first simply help us be witness to our own experience in as loving and as honouring a way as possible, who won't jump in and try to make it better, who won't tell us it's nothing, who won't tell us it will all work out for the good, who won't do any of those simplistic moves, who will simply be with us and say, I see that you are in pain, I'm here for as long as it takes and whatever it takes whilst this pain moves through you. It really helps to have that, to find others who can do that. And I was thinking a lot about this. Of course, you'll know about this, Lizzie, but the weekly turning towards one another practice that we've started online, which is just an opportunity to come and hear one another, to turn up and hear one another. That seems to me it's a similar kind of practice that we don't have, many of us don't have, because our culture has got so individualistic, and also because we have these stories about the point of life is to make it all perfect and seamless and shiny and wonderful and pain-free and glorious and satisfying and fulfilling. We have this sort of only shiny things, only happy things, only joyful things, only complete things are the right things. We've got both of those going on, and that's why we need something outside of ourselves. I think it really helps.
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like we're kind of beginning to foray into this place where we often get to, Justin, about kind of our dominant culture and how what's normal is not to listen, to be heard, to have space, to reflect, to share with people. You know, I was talking to somebody about therapy yesterday, and they were saying, oh my gosh, you know, no, you know, therapy is just too much, it's too shameful, it's too embarrassing, I can't. And I was thinking, where along the way has our culture deemed that getting help is so shameful? Like, I think it's the most excellent thing to get help. Now, of course, there was a time when I was like, nobody can get past this exterior of mine. But I only thought that because I was taught that somehow in the soup of swimming around. And this kind of relationship to what it takes to get help is really something. I think we're living so separately most of the time. When I look at the street where I live, and you know, during lockdown I've kind of got to know everybody a little bit better, which is an amazing thing, but I've also got to know just how separate everyone is really, from understanding stories a bit more of everybody. And it's a really sad thing that to get help, to reach for help when you're really desperate, when you need it, is so taboo in kind of broader mainstream cultural terms. And as you said, like, facing into our pain is not obvious. We need wise ones, we need elders, we need community, we need partners, we need people who aren't our immediate family, who don't have so much invested in us being a certain way to point us in different directions. We need community, like a village of people that have different things to bring us. And the villageness of life and the extended familyness of life doesn't seem to be talked about or have a larger value. You know, mostly what's talked about is the, I don't know, like the kind of what car we might get, or where we might go for a trip or something, or, you know, I don't know, it just feels like our agenda is so small, and in order for us to flourish and feel held and be part of a bigger web that has meaning and resource and options and different people to reach for when we need them, we need to start having different conversations broadly in our world to make things okay, to make things normal, to bring things into a space that has things that we really need feel accessible rather than things that are something to be ashamed of.
The things that's emerging, Lizzie, for me as you're talking about this and making these connections is I'm connecting up the connection between the ways in which we make pain wrong, as Teddy Macker says, or brace ourselves against it, or turn away from it, and the things in our culture which are in our wider world that are really, really difficult for us to resolve. So, for example, I wonder what will happen with all the pain that's come from this coronavirus situation that we're all in. Whether what we'll do collectively is just try and push it out of the way and pretend like it never happened, or whether we'll find it in ourselves to turn towards one another and start to talk about things like, look at how much loss there's been, and look at what we discovered about ourselves in this time, that many things we thought were necessary were denied to us, and look at how unjust our society is and how many people suffered needlessly more than others when it could have been avoided because of where they lived, or the colour of their skin, or the language they spoke, or the opportunities that were afforded to them. And that this one way of reading Teddy Macker, and one part of the conversation that we've been in, is how our own pain can be food for our own lives and our own development. But the other part of it is, as long as we treat pain as wrong, in other words, as something, as a mistake, then we're denied the possibility of really talking about our own pain and really staying present with other people's pain, which is the first step to healing anything. It would be like going to the doctor, and the doctor saying, I won't look at the hurting bit. Now, I know you've cut your leg, but let's talk about your elbow, because it's much more comfortable to talk about your elbow. No, we really need to talk about, I'm going to keep on quoting him, turn and know and honor and not just and handle well the hurting bits in ourselves and in one another and in our communities and in our wider culture, if we're ever going to do anything other than skate over the surface of things.
Yeah, it feels really important right now, and that the world is asking us in all kinds of ways to turn towards a broader, I don't know what the word is, feels like woundedness, with all of the things that are coming to light more broadly that many people have been in for years. But the world is turning towards different things now. And so this capacity to be with difficult things have difficult conversations and to turn towards the pain of that feels like what our work is. And I can feel my aversion to it immediately as I even say it, which is like, difficult conversations are really hard. I don't know if I want this. And yet I know this is what's being asked, and I will respond and I will have them. And I know that about myself, and it's really hard.
I wonder if as a sort of closing thought from me, I wonder if when we talk about what difficult conversations, we talk about difficult conversations with one another. I wonder if really what's difficult about them is exactly what Teddy Macker is pointing us to. It's not the conversation itself that's difficult. We can talk about anything. It's what it feels like to be in the conversation. It's that this hurts to be in this conversation. I am hurting because I feel ashamed, or because I feel frightened, or because I'm confused, or because I feel judged, or because I feel, and it's exactly, and this is why Teddy Macker's words are not just food. It's not just for us. Our capacity to see everything as, every last thing as food is equal to our capacity to stay in a conversation with another person or another group of people that we might otherwise bounce out of. That's the difficulty. And I'm left wondering if maybe part of this is where the personal and the interpersonal so obviously connect, which is our work to allow ourselves to know and honor and turn our own pain is is part of what it's called for, to be in the working with the pain of our own societies and cultures together. They're just not separate to one another, and that's why this is not some fancy self-indulgence. This is actually a really deep call that we could choose to respond to.
Absolutely.
So as always, Lizzie, thank you for being in this unfolding conversation together. And thank you everyone for being with us. We've come to the time that it's time for us to stop for this week. And our plan is to continue. So I'll be so glad to be with you and with everyone next time.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.